everyone. I'm so excited to have you guys on our webinar today. Welcome to Success Series. My name is Kimberly Broussard.
My name is Nathan Bornaba.
And today we will discuss communicating change. Did you guys know that when you communicate change, our presentation of the change, our level of confidence that we express about the change, and even our ability to answer questions all play a role in the way that that message is received. So to make information relevant, we want to make sure that we show how it clearly impacts that person. So we want to hear your thoughts, your ideas, and your strategies for our topic today. And here's how you can share. So you guys can all chat with each other through today's webinar, but be sure to chat with the panel during our interactive parts. So in chat, you're going to make sure that it says to all panelists and attendees so we can share our ideas. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, okay, how to plan your message. Just like everything else that we do, it's important that you plan your message. All right, then we're going to decide, okay, once we plan that message, we're going to decide what to say and how to communicate your message. So it's important for us to plan out what we're going to say, just like everything else that we do in life. The more knowledgeable you are about the change and the more you're prepared at anticipating those questions, the better chance that you're going to get their buy-in. So Nathan, have you ever communicated change before?
Actually, yes. So when I was in the private sector, I had to communicate to my employees that they had to work weekends. And it was a tough conversation to have. And I understand. I could have used this webinar.
I'm sure that you got a lot of pushback about working weekends.
Yeah. What about you?
Yes, I actually had to communicate change before, but I didn't do any planning in the beginning. What I did was it was actually a policy change, and I forwarded the email to my employees and said, see below and let me know if you have any questions. And let me tell you, that was a big mistake. I almost had to contact our IT to, do away with my email because I got so many responses. And so, I had to change my platform. So I want to ask you guys and put it in chat. What are some things you need to consider when developing your message plan? Nathan, what are some things you think we need to consider?
I would definitely consider the audience. Who you're communicating this change to. Back in my situation, it was employees that I was managing. So I had to, make sure it was a college audience. So I had to make sure I had proof and show them the why. And your audience is very important. And I see in the comments, it's your form of communication, clarity of the message, definitely the audience. Yes, Stacy. What is the best format to communicate the message? Those are some great comments.
Mm-hmm. So the first step in your change communication checklist is to lay out your plan. Mm-hmm. So when we identify basic information, it's important for you to meet the needs of your audience. That basic information that you should identify are the 4 W's and the H. So you guys remember when we changed platforms for Success Series, we wanted to give you a platform that was a little bit more interactive so that you could share your tips and ideas with us. And so when we changed those platforms, there's a couple of things that we needed to consider in planning our message to you guys. The first one was who needs to know? I saw a lot of you put in there that you need to know your audience, and Nathan said the same thing. You needed to know your audience. So you want to consider your audience members, including their relationships to the information, their background knowledge. You also want to anticipate their responses because this will help you be prepared for their questions. Mm-hmm. So when we were planning our message, the who were you guys. It was our Success Series members. The next one is why. Why is this change happening? Why do they need to know the information about that change that you're sharing? So you want to know or identify, will this change make their work easier? Or will this information you have keep them in compliance or out of trouble? So when we thought about the why in planning our session about that new platform, we wanted to make it more interactive. And so that you guys could not only communicate with each other, but with the host as well. Our next is what? What exactly do we need to communicate? What information needs to be included? When you give too much information, guess what? Squirrel, you're gonna lose their attention. And then if you give too little, then you won't get their buy-in. So you have to be kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears when she sat down and she had just enough porridge. You want to give them just enough information and consider the impact this information will have on everyone involved. So Nathan, I know that you did a little bit of planning whenever you communicated that change to your employees. What information would we have needed to include to our Success Series members about changing platforms?
Well, first, I would include the why. The why is important. I feel like we are all kind of motivated by the why, because if you know why, you can make that connection. And also what platform we were using, if it was Skype, whatever the platform is, we need to make sure that we communicate it to our audience. And when it's important to include a calendar or give people time to adjust to use the new platform. And provide any job aids, or in our case, any tutorials, videos to help them learn the new software and just get acquainted and familiar with the software.
So you said a good one as well, is when were we using this platform? And that's another part of your planning process, is identifying, okay, when do we need to communicate this? You want to consider the urgency of the information, and as well as the amount of time needed to prepare for the change. So once you've got all the 4 W's determined, now it's time for you to think about the H, and that's how. How will you deliver this information? You want to make sure that you choose the most effective communication media and method for the task at hand. You don't want to pull a Kim. And when there's a big policy change that occurs, you don't want to just use that platform of email and forward that email to your employees, because they're going to have a lot of questions. So what are some different platforms that you guys use to deliver your messages? I want you to type those in chat for me. Nathan?
I'll go first. In person. Whenever I'm communicating change, I love to, get a feel of the audience and see the audience and emotions, faces. And especially when I'm receiving information, I'd rather it be in person as well. I see a lot of people saying face-to-face. Emails, Julie said emails, Amanda, group meeting. A lot of people prefer face-to-face as well. I can relate, y'all. Staff meetings from Jared. Meeting and follow-up email. So in the comments, you all noticed some great means, and it's important to choose the most effective communication media and the method for the task at hand. So in person and phone are recommended for communicating a major change. I prefer it because I like that personal touch. I'm a feeling person. So getting information, I'm going to have questions. So I'd rather kind of feel the energy of the room or the energy of the person that's telling me. It adds the personal connection to the information being communicated. Now, I saw a few of you guys said email, IM, the occasional text message. It does lose that personal touch of the information being communicated. So you might prefer this media for small changes, things that don't directly affect your audience or things that don't have any much importance. Just be sure that the means of communication you choose matches up to the importance of your information. So does anybody in the audience have a preferred media for communicating change? And Kim, you go first. I'm asking you as well.
I would definitely say in person, but now that we're all remote, Zoom. You know, when I think of it, and Rachel just said Zoom or Skype, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Zoom, it could be Teams. There's so many other platforms that you could use. And so the reason that I like, you know, to the Zoom platform or any type of platform where I can see your face is because when I think of change, or when you let me know that change is happening, in my mind, I immediately go to, why is this happening? You know, what was wrong with the old way? You know, I really don't want to change. So my mind is full of negative things that are going on. And so I need to look at you in your eyes and or look at your face and your body language for you to provide me some comfort and say, hey, everything's going to be fine.
I agree. And a lot of people are agreeing with you. In person, Zoom, Skype. I feel like it doesn't actually have to be in person. It's just having that human touch. So even voice, as long as it's not like, I'm the type of person, if you send me change in a text message, I'm going to call you because I have questions and I want to hear exactly what you have to say about the change. So now that we determine the specifics, let's get into exactly what we're going to say.
So when communicating, you want to communicate the what, the why, the how, the when, the who, as well as the WIFM. The WIFM, for you guys that aren't familiar with that acronym, is what's in it for me. So it's important for you to help employees understand the benefits of the change and to see the positive sides of it. Now, you guys remember whenever I told you, when I hear that changes are about to occur, in my mind, everything that I said that was going on in my mind was negative. So it's important that whenever you're communicating change to anyone, that you are making that connection between the benefits and the positives of that change, so that they can see that side. So if you're not familiar with how to draw that connection for people, don't worry. Nathan and I have you covered, and we're going to teach you how to help draw those connections.
So we're using this example. I want to preface this. We're using examples for employees, but this could work in honestly any part of your life. Family, friends, it doesn't matter. It's universal. So when change is first announced, most people, they're in denial. They'll start to reject it. If you're like me, you'll have extreme anxiety. And this is why it's crucial to identify what kind of information should be communicated and how often it should be shared. So when you're creating your message, people are going to have questions. So you can prepare for that by thinking about the questions that people might have. Now in the chat, and also Kim, you too, I want to know, what are some common questions someone might have about a policy change?
Oh, Nathan, that's a good one. I can tell you right off the top of my head, I know where it's going, and I see people already putting it in chat. The why is this change happening? Have you guys ever been in a long car ride with a kid that says, why is the sky blue? Why is the clouds white? Well, I'm that why person. I need to know the whys in order to understand the change. What about you, Nathan?
Definitely the why too, because that why is linear. Once I get the why, I'm usually more accepting to the change, and it helps me make that connection. I see Alisa saying who instituted the change. When does it start? When is it being implemented? How is it going to affect me? Those are some great questions. And some more to keep in mind is people might want to know, what is your vision for the change? If you're the one who's giving the change, maybe they want to see how comfortable you are with the information. What does the change look like in your eyes? How employees' roles may be impacted. What are the details of the change? How can employees be a part of the change? And lastly, how to make sure employees embrace the change. So some things to consider when drafting your script are to show how a policy or procedure serves the mission. You can illustrate how it supports your vision, explain the information, how it relies on the agency's values to succeed. And you can even use the WIFM, or what's in it for me, of course, and explain the change and how it will make their work more easier. Or if it's more work, you can tell them the why. Maybe it's an improved process for tracking or anything of that nature. So after determining what to do, what to say, sorry, now you have to decide how to say it. And Kim is going to explain that one.
So we've already walked you through at least two of the steps for your change communication checklist. Now you know you need to plan your message. You have to determine exactly what you're going to say and anticipate those questions. And now you have to decide how to say it. And I know you're thinking, what do you mean? How do you say it? Did you guys know that poorly communicated information can have a bigger impact than we think? When information is communicated poorly, we can influence the buy-in of our audience just by our body language. So when we think about communication, it's made up of more than just words. It's maintaining eye contact. It's, nodding your head and sitting up straight during a video call, or it's the hand movements as you speak. So what are some nonverbal cues that can impact the buy-in from a person? And I want you guys to put it in chat for me. And Nathan, can you answer that question? What do you think are some nonverbal cues that can impact that buy-in?
I would say tone, because if you're relaying information and let's say you just got information about a change and you're not comfortable with it, then most likely you're going to start a chain reaction and no one's going to be comfortable with it. Tone, people know how you feel about things with your tone. So that's something to keep in mind. I see Rachel said slouching. Jared said eye rolls. Amanda, eye contact. Crossed arms. Making sure you're looking people in the eye. I see a lot of those. In body posture, facial expressions. That's something to definitely keep in mind, because I know I'm that person who, sometimes my face doesn't always match how I feel. So yeah.
Well, you guys came up with some great ones. And, when you're communicating change, it really doesn't matter how good your script is. It could be one of the best scripts you've ever made, but people will go by what they see and not what they hear. For example, if you guys ask me, Kim, are you having a good day? And I said, I'm having a great day today. Which one would you guys believe? Would you believe my body language, or would you believe what you see or what you hear?
Your body language. I don't believe you.
Definitely body language. And, a lot of you in chat said, facial expressions. And, I'm going to be vulnerable right now because by this time, you guys were all family now. So, my facial expressions are my areas of enrichment. And so I have to make sure that I started putting a mirror at my desk to watch my facial expressions, just to make sure that my facial expressions are mimicking what I say. Because I might be, you might be communicating change and you might be excited about the change, but your body language is saying otherwise. So that's why you have to do a self-assessment. You have to be self-aware of how you're feeling about that change, because it definitely can show how you truly feel through your body language. So, when we think about change, who's the first person that we have to convince about that change?
Yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I see people, that's right. You have to convince yourself. So if you can't convince yourself about the change, then it will reflect in the buy-in of others. So what does positive body language look like? You guys said tone, and you guys said, eye contact. And so you want to be mindful that when you guys are, communicating that change to that person, that you are your words are mimicking everything on the outside too. So what they see is mimicking what they hear as well. Oh, I see a smile, open arms, open stands,
posture,
excitement. Oh, Helena, you guys have some great ones. I love display confidence. That's another good one. You have to display confidence and knowledge about that change, Because if you don't know too much about the change, then that definitely could impact that buy-in. It could negatively impact that buy-in because they're going to be like, okay, well, he or she doesn't know anything about this change, so it must not be that hot or that great. So, oh, and Mary said the old saying, "Who are you trying to convince? You or me?"
Yeah.
I love that one too.
Because, and this is also a good point, it's make sure that your emotions are in order whenever you're receiving information. So let's say you just got information about a policy and you're in charge of talking about it. Make sure that you feel not your best, but comfortable with the information. You process your emotions. Take some time to let that sink in, because as soon as you go and talk about the change and they see that you don't care for it, that's it. They won't care for it. And you're going to have to double work basically to show people that you have to embrace the change. So that's something to keep in mind.
So when you say process your emotions, what are some things that they can do to process their emotions? Because I know when I'm feeling overwhelmed or I know I'm having a negative feeling coming on, I have to go and take a walk.
I'm that person. Take a walk, meditate, write down any questions I might have for future clarification. Because sometimes give yourself time, because sometimes whenever you get changed, your thoughts are everywhere. So if you sit back maybe a few minutes, if you can, and just write down your questions and get a clear head and your thoughts on it and understand it, you're fine. Julie says, step away from the computer. Yeah. Tawana, sit with it for a while and think it through.
Oh, I like that. Alicia said, when change is instituted, I usually have to separate myself to absorb what is happening.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to tone, Kim, before we go, a smile is simple and it can go a long way. Have you ever talked on the phone with someone, you could tell that they're smiling, or on the radio, you could hear that someone's smiling? A simple smile can go a long way because people can feel that. So if you're frowning on the phone, you might not think that people not catching it, but they are.
I love that Hope said, it helps to remind myself that the change isn't always about me.
I like that too. Yes, Michelle, it is important to give people opportunity to ask questions. I agree. So many people, they communicate their change, they think it's successful, they did the one meeting and they feel like they got their communication, their thoughts communicated, and they're making a big mistake. So what the mistake is that many people believe that once you communicate change, your job is over. It's one and done, it's complete. And that's not the case. So in order for someone to effectively follow through with the change, you have to keep communicating the change and remind them of it. So in researching, I was intrigued with this answer, and I want to ask the audience, I want you guys to input a number. How many times do you think a person needs to hear a message before it actually sinks in?
I see a lot of 3.
Ooh. Okay.
I think Mary and
Karen.
Mary.
Yeah, Mary, Karen. You're right. I see the correct answer. So different experts have different ideas for what the magic number is, but the most popular is the rule of 7. So the rule of 7 suggests that people need to hear a message 7 times before they actually consider taking an action. So I'm gonna put it like this. Think about a new song you hear on the radio. At first, you're like, what is this? And then when you start hearing it over and over again, like kind of often, you start to like the song. You might start singing to it, add it to your playlist. But if you're like me, whenever you're in the car and you hear it every 5 minutes, doesn't it start to get annoying? So it's important to find that sweet spot. How many times you communicate the change, because redundancy or repetition, it can be your best friend or it can also be your worst enemy. So to reduce the loss of information, just try to make sure you have that sweet spot as it's transferred from one person to another as well. Another example is to think about the telephone game. Whenever I was in elementary school, or even in college, there was a message game where a message is whispered throughout a line of people. And at the end of the line, the message always comes back changed drastically. If you only communicate your change or your policy or your information one time, this is likely to happen because people have questions and their thoughts are all over the place. So give your audience time to process and just time to process the information and communicate it and hear about the change. If you want to go the extra mile, provide resources that will help them understand and process the information and plan it. Follow up emails are great tools to use.
I really love what you said in regards to the telephone game because I never thought about it like that. I know I've played that game, several times when I was young. And, the original message, by the time it got to the end, it was never even, it was not even close to the original
Mhm.
message. And, it makes me think about, when, I don't know about you guys, when I had to write, I will not talk in class 100 times. And so, it's the repetition of, you know, putting it in the forefront several times, it'll change your a behavior.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting to think about it in that perspective.
Mhm. Rachel said checking up on each other, following said changes is also helpful to make sure everyone is adapting. I like that too. It's
Mhm,
important to make sure that everything is going seamlessly. There's change isn't going to happen overnight.
mhm.
So it's important to follow up and make sure that it's progress. If someone has questions, they can answer, you can answer. I like that, Rachel.
Mhm. Me too, because I think that it is important that, so many times, we think when we explain it, that we plan our message, we explain it, it looks like everybody is buying and we're like, all right, our work is done. And it's not done. We have to keep on helping them through that transition phase so that we can, freeze their mind to that new way of whatever that change might be.
Hmm.
And I know, we provided you guys with a lot of examples that were work related, but you can also use this, in your personal life, just making sure that, you still have to plan your message when you're communicating
Yeah.
change to another individual. And, preparation is key. And it's also important for you to remember to, keep talking about that change.
Yeah. I love what Tawana said before we move forward. She said, be prepared to adjust things to fit the situation. You're always going to adjust. You have to, you have to adjust, evaluate, assess it, and go back and forth. I love that, Tawana. So we made it through another episode about communication during change, but I wanted to touch because this topic gives tips on tools for those who are communicating change. But I would like to mention if you're the person who's receiving change, and if you're like me, take some time to process your emotions as well, because you have to make sure you're in a good headspace and get your emotions in order. After you do that, ask any questions you might have, write them down, and please keep in mind that there's no such thing as a stupid question. You have to do whatever you need to do to understand that the changes are happening so you can do your best, adjust, and lean into the change. And, we're all a team, we're all working. So lean into it and use that teamwork to move forward. So if we all learn to communicate effectively during the change, we'll be at an advantage and we'll be change masters.
I love that word, change masters. So I just want you guys to be mindful if you take away anything from this webinar today is to, make sure that you plan what you're going to say.
Mhm.
Don't pull a Kim and just wing it. You want to be prepared and as knowledgeable as you can be about that change, because whenever change occurs, and Nathan had provided some great advice about asking questions. So
Mhm.
if you are the person that's communicating that change, you want to anticipate those questions, the answers to those questions beforehand, so that you can look knowledgeable and put them at that recipient that's receiving that information, that you could put them at ease.
Mhm.
So we want to hear from you guys. Any closing thoughts, any closing remarks about what we've discussed today? You know, when I think about that processing those emotions, you know, we thought about it from the recipient's point of view, but I never thought about it from the person who's giving that information. I never thought about how your emotions can impact how you deliver it.
Mhm. And it's, you get out what you put in. So if you prepare for, you're communicating that change and you write your questions down and follow the steps, then you're at an advantage.
Tawana said, "Embrace change, it's inevitable," and I agree, Tawana. You know, I know in this past year, a lot of us have been through so many different changes
Yeah.
within the way we work, how we communicate, and you know, it's something that we deal with in personal and our professional lives. So it's important for us to process our emotions and move through those steps of change and go through it, because it is inevitable.
Mhm. Stacy said that change can be very hard, especially when it's necessary.
Mhm.
And I agree. A lot of times whenever we're approached with change, we're scared of it. We don't want to embrace it. But sometimes that change is needed. Expect the unexpected.
Mhm. I saw some about providing the benefits and the positives of it. To me, I find that truly beneficial, because a lot of people, when you think about change, you think about, all right, how does it affect me? How does it affect my work? How it's
Mhm.
going to affect me? And so by making that connection for those employees and finding those benefits and the positives out of the change, help those who are like me, who go straight to the negatives. It'll help me make that connection that, hey, you know what, maybe this change is not as bad as I thought it was.
Mhm. Stacy, the rule of 7 is how many times you have to repeat the change. People will catch on at least 7 times. So let's say you're talking about a new policy, make sure you let them know 7 times, at least 7. If you do it more, just make sure it's not too much, because then it'll feel like you're beating it in their head. So it just depends on finding that perfect sweet spot to repeat yourself over and over.
So now that we talked a little bit about our closing remarks, all of the great tips and ideas that we've shared today, I'm going to have a handout for you. Nathan and I, we have a handout. So you'll be able to find this handout. It's going to be on our talent development page under Success Series webinars. You're going to click on it and it's going to bring up all the handouts from all of the webinars that we've done. And if you want to re-watch any of our past webinars, as well as this one, you can find our past webinars on our YouTube page just by searching Louisiana State Civil Service. And if you don't have access to YouTube, guess what? We're in Leo, so you can find us there. What you're going to do is going to search webinar in Leo, and you're going to find all of our past webinars. Now, we're not finished with the 3 C's of change. We have one more where we're going to talk about coping strategies. And, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, when you think about change, some of the fear and anxiety that's associated with it. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed. We're going to have some coping strategies for you to help you navigate through those feelings. So I hope that you guys will join us on April 15th. But before we end this webinar, I need some feedback from you guys. So here at Success Series, we love your feedback and your input, and we value every discussion, tip, and shared resources. We truly enjoy your interactions with this show, and we would like to enlist your help in choosing our next 3-part series. You're going to see a list of possible topics, and you're going to see a poll on your screen. And I would like for you guys to choose the topic that you would like to see us discuss next. Now, you should see it on your screen now. We're going to give you 30 seconds to go ahead and place your vote. No, I see we have one topic in the lead.
Ooh.
All right. I think we're almost there. I'll give you guys another 10 seconds. All right. Well, it looks like that we have a winner. So it looks like our next series, our topic for our series will be work-life balance. So I'm excited, and I was hoping that that would be the one that we were going to share with you guys. I see people saying yay. So I'm excited, and thank you guys for being a part of this and doing the poll and giving us your recommendations. We're excited. So thank you very much. So I hope that you guys have had a lot of tips and tricks that'll help you as you navigate through change. Don't forget to join us for our next series. Thank you for joining us today. And don't forget to keep on learning.
Bye.